All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to uh, uh, welcome to let's see. Welcome to today's member showcase for the members of the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance. We've got a great showcase for you folks today. Uh, but before we do that, I want to quickly mention that DAIAA had our first tutorial last week where we had about I think over 30 people showed up for a Vibe coding tutorial. The replay is up on the DAIAA YouTube channel. And I think it was super interesting. And we're definitely going to follow that up. This is a great platform for folks to get together, share their knowledge. A lot of that went on that call, and we're definitely going to lean into that. Um, and so today we've got one member showcasing today. So looking forward to that. And we'll have time at the end and we'll use that on an open discussion. So if anybody wants to talk about anything, mention something, ask something, that'll be plenty of time at the end to do that. So the member showcasing today is ArcBlocks. In perfect timing there. Matt is just joining us. So, hey, Matt.
Hey Lou, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Crypto Monday, everyone.
Yeah,
Where,
exactly.
where are you dialing in from, Matt?
Just right outside of Seattle, so Pacific Northwest, and getting ready to take a trip to the East Coast later today. So hopefully connect with everybody, at least virtually, kind of in that regard. So
Okay, cool. You come to New York?
is starting in Boston and kind of working our way around, and it's a maybe. It's a maybe. We don't
Okay.
actually know yet. So yeah, so thanks for having me. And I was just trying to get my phone set up here, and the quintessential, as you're getting ready to do a demo, then your phone doesn't work, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, which is totally fine. And so what I want to do here, if you're okay, can I share my screen?
Sure. And I was just gonna, introduce you saying that
Oh,
you're gonna be featuring, and this is what you wrote, ArcSphere, which is, yeah, as everyone can read, a new mobile browser that integrates a native uh, AI intelligence that is accessible throughout the browser to help you summarize pages, get contextual support, do research, and more. And you're not tracking any data or no data ever leaves your phone. So it sounds super interesting. With that, I'm going to stop sharing, and you should be able to share your screen.
perfect. Thanks very much, and thanks for having me. And as we go through this, feel free to jump in with questions, everybody. And part of why I wanted to come on here and actually showcase this is just talk to a group of fellow decentralized AI folks and get feedback and learnings along the way. This is definitely a learning process for us as we go through this. And historically, so real quick, again, my name's Matt. I work with a company called ArcBlock. ArcBlock has been around since 2017, and over the last couple of years, we've gotten knee deep in decentralized AI. Myself, I've been working with the company for multiple years now. I'm co-chair of the Decentralized Identity Method Spec Group with the Decentralized Identity Foundation. Working with lots of companies across the country, rolling out and using AI, using blockchain, using decentralization to build apps, services, solutions. But one of the things we really wanted to get into, and AI has been a great conduit for this, is to start to solve user experience challenges. And I think as we look at AI, I think we're thinking about it a little bit differently. And we very much are embracing kind of the human plus AI approach as we look at this. And so I'm going to just share my screen here for everybody here. And I think first and foremost, before I even go to that, I just wanted to showcase this because I think this is a key component of ArcSphere in terms of what we're doing. So this is the Apple App Store. And you can see under here in the app privacy right here, we do not collect any data whatsoever. And that's a big differentiator for us. But also a user experience challenge in terms of how we go about building an app and how we especially go about building AI within a kind of a browser ecosystem to work. But I wanted to kind of showcase this before I jump into the slide. And I just have a couple of slides. And again, I apologize. My phone for some reason doesn't want to share my screen. So I'll keep going through this. But this is ArcSphere, and ArcSphere. There's a couple things we were attempting to do as we created ArcSphere, and we've been working on this for probably about a year and a half now. What originally was a project to integrate AI and decentralized applications kind of morphed into something much broader, something much more interesting, where we really set out to start to reimagine navigation and how we interact with mobile browsers, privacy, and also AI in terms of how we use it, how we consume it, and kind of the idea of, competing against or battling against the idea of kind of the overarching AI. And you're seeing some new solutions in the market come about, like Opera Neon, Comet. Our approach is very different than those in terms of, like, we're not trying to be the OS of your life. In fact, what we're trying to do is create a companion AI that's there to help guide kind of whatever you need it for, as you go through this. And so this is our experience. As you can see, there's again, I would show you on the screen, but would love for people to download this and try it themselves. It's a mobile browser. Again, really what we're trying to do is reimagine mobile browsing for the era of AI, decentralization. It's really designed for people like myself and hopefully folks like you who are really, adamant or looking to engage privacy, and keeping your data, having the ability to control your data, especially in the advent of AI. And then also works, again, seamlessly Web 2, Web 3, Web 5, whatever you want it to be, and have an experience that actually works the same everywhere you go. And that's been a kind of a use case challenge that we've had for many years in terms of decentralized applications. So within ArcSphere, there's a couple of things, and one of the paramount features we have is something called spatial tabs. And spatial tabs is really kind of a 3D approach to navigation, and in particular on a mobile device, right? If you've used Chrome, or you use Edge, or you use Firefox, you typically will see kind of a two column approach to tab navigation, right? It's very static, not particularly interesting. And what we did here is create it so you can pinch and zoom, you can move it around, you can reorganize, and you can kind of see there's a screenshot here. But really, the idea is to be able to group and consume tabs in a more kind of natural, organic way, as we do that. Part two of that is we've integrated passwordless login. It also supports single sign-on for Google, for Apple, for Hotmail, passkeys. But the idea, the way that we actually made it work is, even when you're logging in with your Google sign-on, we are actually creating a decentralized ID in the background. So you're able to maintain kind of that, privacy preserving nature of the browser. And then, as I mentioned, in terms of Web 2, Web 3, really making it accessible and capable of, being able to support decentralized applications, right, which oftentimes have a different way technically of working, than more like, for example, like domain names. Web 3 domain is very different than a Web 2 domain, but having these things be able to work. And then last and least is kind of, I'll call it on-device intelligence, right? On-device AI. It's fast, it's private, we don't share any data, it's always available. It's available throughout the entire browser. So as you're, consuming pages, or you're consuming content, you have kind of instant access to that. And I'm going to go through, I want to talk about that a little bit here in terms of the AI companion. This is just a quick screenshot. Like before, right? You can chat with it. You can get content summarization. You can, consume articles. Also has contextual relevance, right? Contextual help. So as you're looking for something and it sees you're trying to do something, it'll provide prompts, provide answers, to try to guide you to the information that you're actually trying to look for, as you do that. And obviously, privacy at the core in terms of what we're actually trying to do, within that experience. And I wanted to kind of pull this up because one of the questions I get frequently is like, well, hey, like, what AI are you guys using? How do you preserve the privacy of, if you're interacting with like an open AI, like a chat GPT or a Gemini? Because in fact, the way that we built this system, it's using an open source framework. It's called Agent Framework in the background. Supports a bunch of different LLMs from Gemini, ChatGPT, Nova, et cetera, as we do that. And so from the AI perspective, kind of focusing on that for a second, local processing. So all the AI features are running directly in the browser, right? The data itself never actually leaves the device. No external data sharing, right? So as you're having interactions, with OpenAI or any other third party, that data share doesn't occur. Again, user control, right? Because of the decentralized identity aspects of what we do, you always have the ability to approve, deny, or take some type of action in terms of that control of your data. And then technically, right, privacy respecting architecture in the background, right, to make sure that that information stays in the back. And then last and least, right, is just a very clear and accessible privacy policy. So just making sure that's always front and center for people in terms of the privacy nature of the browser. And then last here is just in terms of, again, why ArcSphere. And as we think about this kind of going forward, right, is really building kind of, again, a human plus AI type of approach to browsing, and specifically mobile browsing, right, where it's a phone, it's a device that we take with us, basically 99% of the time. So kind of reinventing. So not just thinking of like a desktop browser, but really thinking, how do we do these things on a mobile device, right? So it has a very streamlined workflow. Again, you have that control, future proofing, and then having that AI attached to you to be your companion along the way. So that was what I wanted to just walk through. Would love any questions, and more importantly, is love for people to try it out, give us feedback, kind of share what those experiences are like. And as we do this, we're very much in a ramp up phase. So from a rollout, a national rollout over the next 3 months. We're adding a bunch of new features to it, but at the same time, we're also planning a global rollout. And so we're really looking for communities like this to help us to learn, to get better, to improve, to make sure we've been thorough in the way that we're thinking about things. So would love any questions if anybody has any.
Okay, just well, thanks for that.
Mhm.
Appreciate it, Matt. Looking, Adam, I don't know, did you want to unmute yourself and ask a question directly?
Yeah, sure. Oh, my wrong camera's on, but yeah, you know, the first thing I thought was, oh, is this related to Arc browser company? And I know they're building something that, from what they've described, is that they're trying to solve a similar problem at least, but I haven't even seen
Mhm.
what they come out with. Any thoughts, or I assume no connection, but is there any connection, any thoughts, any comparison if you've seen their beta or anything?
Yeah, for sure. I use all the browsers probably on a daily basis between doing testing with Comet, doing testing with DAIAA. Opera Neon's probably the only one I haven't seen. But yes, there's no connection between the companies. So ArcSphere, from a naming perspective, like we actually named this 2 years ago. So I think it's just kind of like as things have evolved, like there's definitely a little bit of a crossover in terms of kind of the brand experience. So no connection on that side of it. As far as for sure, I think there's other companies trying to solve a similar problem set that we are. Again, I think the way that we think about it is unlike Google Chrome, or again, unlike Comet, the upcoming Comet from Perplexity, is we're trying to very simply weave in AI to be kind of a support structure, right, for all the things that we're trying to do. And in particular, like having AI on your phone is actually, from a user experience standpoint, is quite challenging, right? Because for it to serve up information, to create media for you, right, you have a very limited UI to work within, right? So what we're trying to do instead is to say, hey, well, rather than have it do like a chat GPT where I can pretty much do everything on my desktop, we want to say, well, what do we need it to do within a mobile environment, right? To be able to, like, if I'm traveling or I'm working or I'm doing something or I want to review a PDF, you'll be able to do that on my mobile device, kind of in a very simple, seamless fashion. But then also, as you train the AI, right, that's on your phone, is to have it become smarter and smarter over time, so that it can kind of plan ahead, right, for what it thinks you're going to ask in the future. So going back to your question, yeah, no connection. I think there's probably similar people trying to solve a similar problem. I think where one of the ways we're differentiating, one is the complete privacy nature of what we're actually building. Two is reinventing navigation. So as you go in and you start to play with the sphere, and you'll quickly see that the interaction it's kind of like being on a laptop, but on your mobile device, where you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can search, you can move things around. There's lots of different ways to consume it. So from a navigation perspective, I mean, on average, people have 35 tabs open on their window, and so we're trying to solve that at the same time. And then lastly, I think, is again going back to the privacy side of it, is like begin to weave in decentralization, right? And over the last 4 weeks, we've seen five major breaches that have happened in terms of these centralized systems. And so from a privacy perspective, we're trying to enable people to have more control over the decisions, right? What happens with your data, have the ability to protect it, have the ability to consume services like ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever it may be, but do it in a privacy preserving way, is really what we're trying to solve. So Thanks for that question, Adam.
Yeah, and after others ask questions, I have more. Super cool.
Okay, great. Yeah, if anybody has a question, just raise your hand, take them in the order received. I'll take the next one. And that's, you were talking about having this, AI with, in the mobile browser. And, today, if you go, when I use Google, most of the, when I type in something to search, most of the answers, first answer I get is their AI.
Hmm.
Answer. And so I'm trying to imagine what the experience is. That the experience that'll be like on mobile, or is there, are you architecting a different user experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. We were having this conversation last week about how as we build in, for example, traditional search plus AI plus kind of anything else you want, like what's kind of the pecking order, right, of information that you provide to somebody. And I think from our perspective, it probably is similar, like where the delta is or where the difference is. One is like we're not actually uploading any information to anybody, right? So when Google's running that search, right, they're hitting the cloud, they're sharing that data, they get the data back. Right. In our case, all the inquiries are happening on the device itself. So we're not actually sharing any data, and those interactions never actually get shared with Gemini or anybody else as you do that. But I think from a user perspective, probably similar. I think AI is kind of the preferred method now, and I saw some research over the last couple of weeks in terms of like the transition from traditional search to AI search now. I mean, 6 weeks ago it was like 30-70, and now they're saying it's more like 50-50, right? And that's more of more people are using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude to do searches, but also just the search providers now are using AI more kind of as the priority, right? As they do that. So I think that's right. I mean, that will be kind of where the information starts, and traditional search will be more of the backup, right? In terms of just, oh, hey, I'm just looking for some reference links or something else. So it's a great question. Like I expect it to evolve, right? But on a mobile device for sure.
Sure. Okay, thanks for that. Adam?
Thanks.
Thanks. Hey, Matt. Questions about the privacy stuff that you were talking about. So when you say the data never leaves the device, does that also include any PII in the user questions themselves? And just to clarify, I think you said in your previous answer that all of the user data inquiries are happening on the device itself. So do you download like a tiny model and it does some of the questions on the device itself that way?
Yeah, correct, right. And we start with the tiny model, but also it uses, when and if needed, right, it'll go to OpenAI or anybody else. The difference being is as we do that, we're not actually providing any kind of like PII or personal information about the user, right? It's more of a broad inquiry, because from a user perspective, right, again, you have that decentralized identity in the background. So everything, your data is encrypted effectively. So as we run those queries, right, it's effectively running through us to go through and hit ChatGPT, right, with an inquiry. So they don't know who it is, right, as far as kind of that inquiry or that question that comes up. And then we bring that data back, right, and then put it in front of the user. So from a PII perspective, correct, we don't share any PII about anybody or anything, right? And that's a key foundation of what we're trying to do, to be able to provide a kind of a truly decentralized solution as we do that. And as you log in or as you experience ArcSphere, you have the ability you'll see when you first go in, it's a little bit overwhelming, right? And we're kind of experimenting, but when you first log in, right, there's probably 8 or 9 different kind of like login methods. It's the one thing we do recognize today in like the decentralized space, right, is like people effectively kind of demand still single sign-on, like Google sign-on, Apple sign-on, passkeys, like that's just a real thing, right? That's, and I think in the decentralized space, we're trying to acknowledge that. And that's why we say, well, hey, you can sign in, but as you interact with the browser, it's actually interacting with a decentralized ID in the background, right? We're not actually using that Google sign-on for anything outside of just basically logging into the system to create your identity on that side.
Okay, that thoroughly answers my
Yeah.
question. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, back to the other Adam.
Again, I'm curious. I watched WWDC because I've been watching it for a long time.
Yeah.
And always just super curious about the ecosystem, and now especially about the on-device machine learning and models and capabilities. Can you talk a little bit about how the iPhone today compares to running LLMs on other places, whether that's, your own hardware or the real top of the line models. And also from WWDC, is there anything exciting and new that's coming that changes that story?
Yeah, all great questions. From a model perspective, I think honestly, like, maybe a step back. I'll kind of answer the question indirectly. Is I think it's very much a moving target right now because LLMs are literally transforming, week to week, month to month, where new models are being introduced all the time, and that's why, as we were doing this kind of within ArcSphere, we're using this open source framework in the background that has the ability to support any kind of model we want to throw at it, right? And we can bake it right into ArcSphere, kind of at a moment's notice. And so it's called Agent Framework. And Agent Framework, again, out of the box today, it does support DeepSeek, Nova, Gemini, ChatGPT, right? And kind of all the major models that you can think of. And then as new models are adopted, they're immediately uploaded, and then we're going to evaluate it. What's interesting right now, more interesting for us from a browser perspective, is really thinking like context windows and how large we want that context window to actually be as the user comes and interacts with the browser. And the example being is if you look at like Gemini or even Nova, and I'm guessing probably, I don't know how many people on this call have actually used Nova, like AWS's Nova models. They have huge context windows. Like when you get into the Premier mode, the Premier models, 2.5 million tokens or something. It's very large. But what that enables us to do is some really interesting use cases, right? As you really start to expand out in terms of like processing or PDF consumption, because where Nova, as an example, is thriving is large integration of PDF documentation from like healthcare, fintech, and I think from a consumer side, right, that creates really interesting scenarios for us from a browser perspective, right, to really open it up for users. So I think that, indirectly, I think we're going to use whatever model delivers the best experience and or even leverage multiple models to try to deliver the best experience possible. I think that'll change probably in 6 months where we're more definitive in maybe what we're trying to do. But right now it's about experimenting to figure it out, to say, hey, as you chat with something, does it need to be on device? Does it need to be in the cloud? How much latency is too much latency? Is 100 milliseconds, too much? I don't know. I mean, we'll find out, right? I mean, that's part of what we're kind of learning right now is in terms of that best user experience possible. And I think the other question too is like, what do users demand, right? Is, as you, our CEO and I talk about this frequently, right? Is like, are the older models good enough to satisfy 98% of the requests that come in, right? Or do we really need the latest models baked in? And I think that's definitely TBD because the majority of, even like Olama, 3, ChatGPT 3 can handle 85% of the requests that are coming in because a lot of them are pretty simple. But I think as far as like Apple, Android, for sure. I mean, obviously, the more powerful the phones get, the better for us. But I think from yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a great question for the Apple updates. Maybe we circle back around in 3 months and talk about that one. Yeah, I don't have a good answer on that one right now. So, but thanks for the question. That's an awesome question.
So maybe just a really quick follow-up then, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Because I've been playing with the app this whole time. I assume others are too. Um, and like if I ask it a question to compare two things, clearly it's going out and searching and reading and comparing. Is that possibly all happening locally, or is there any way to know if it's happening locally versus if it's being sent to the cloud AIs?
Yeah, there's no way to know right now. It's a good question. I can find out if you can get access to that. The idea is try to make it as simple and clean as possible for people, so it's a seamless user experience, regardless of like where it's going to get the information. So great question. Yeah, great question.
Thanks.
Yeah, and the one thing is as you kind of go through this, we are rolling out kind of an entirely brand new onboarding flow over the next couple of weeks. So this will greatly improve. But as you go on, it's again very simple to connect. But then what I encourage you to do is like as you have the sphere, right, just kind of pinch and pull, right, and kind of you'll kind of see that different experience in terms of being able to zoom in, zoom out, and in the very near future, you'll be able to have multiple spheres running at the same time, where you have different collections of tabs and navigation and apps all in together. So cool. Well, thanks very much, everybody. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to grab me. It's just Matt at ArcBlock.io. Really appreciate everyone's time and Lou, thanks very much for the opportunity to come in front of everybody.
Okay, terrific. Well, thanks, Matt. And yeah, I'll ask just one quick thing, and maybe it's obvious on its face, but what are and I guess Adam's got another question too, Adam Sandor. What are the major things that we should be concerned about with regards to using search and privacy?
Yeah, I think, it's there's definitely a transition that's happening right now, and I think what you're seeing is more and more companies want to become like an OS of your life. Effectively that's like a vacuum of data, right? And I think that's, as you interact more and more with AI, you give it tasks, you let it order things for you. I mean, you're effectively giving up full control over your data, right? And that's kind of the point, right? That's kind of what they want. Again, differing from us, like we're not trying to build a solution to build advertising, for example. Like we're not looking to get your data so we can advertise to you. And I think that from a privacy perspective, the implications of breaches are going to accelerate and increase tenfold, right? As you're giving more and more data to Google, right? I'm not going to, again, we'll say the large companies, right? Where effectively if there is a breach that happens, right? You can imagine how much data somebody actually has on you. Like you've got pictures of my kids, you've got my numbers, you've got my addresses, you know where I like to eat, because this is all information I'm sharing, right? And so the opportunity for bad actors, right, is becoming larger and larger as we do that. And so for us, like again, having the ability, you could go back to the classic crypto sense and say, well, we want you to be able to be rewarded for your data, right? That's kind of the traditional model, right, of trying to do this. But on top of that, now what we're trying to do is effectively give you control, right, to be able to make decisions about when and where and how your data goes out into the ecosystem, right, of interactions. And so from a privacy perspective, if you're not concerned about it, I would encourage everybody to dive a little deeper and really read through like what is Google trying to do, what is Perplexity trying to do, why do they want all this data, why is it that they want an AI in my device, on my device, right? It's not because they're friends with you, right? It's not because they
No,
are
no,
trying to offer.
they're not our friend.
Yeah, and so and I think from a privacy perspective, again, it's like these things are going to exponentially increase, right, over the next year, 2 years, right, as AI becomes more and more normalized across all the services that we use. Where effectively to use anything, right, you have to give up kind of the keys to the kingdom with those interactions, especially as you bring more and more AI into your house as you do that. So it's a great question, and it's definitely worth a thoughtful discussion, thoughtful exercise, right? I'm sure lots of people have lots of opinions, but for us, going back again to kind of the genesis of this group, like decentralization is really a baseline foundation for how we should go and interact with the internet, right? And ArcBlock as a company is, we've been doing this since 2017 and have kind of stood the same ground. And we work with My Data, we work with Decentralized Identity Foundation, working with W3C, and where the challenge has always been is, from a decentralized standpoint, is it's more of a marketing problem in terms of like really getting out there and kind of educating people like what does it mean to be decentralized, right? Because for a lot of people it's just kind of jargon language, right? It's not like a Google sign-on that's super easy, like, oh, okay, Google sign-on, click, I'm done, right? And I think that's the challenge we have as a larger organization, right? Is really to educate people at the benefits of why this actually matters to you in terms of doing that. So kind of indirect answer to your question, but thank you for that.
No, appreciate it. Adam?
Okay.
Glad to see the Atoms have teamed up on this one. But I'm pretty new to the decentralized space. I've been in corporate tech for 9 years. So when you're talking about being compatible with Web 2 and Web 3, what's the benefit of being compatible with Web 3? Is it future proofing? And on top of that, was it difficult to architect for both of those, or is like substantial changes for both? I'm curious. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's very difficult, and not to say we want to be a pioneer in the space, but as you go out and you look at so if you're in the kind of the decentralized space, right? There's like unstoppable domains. There's anybody has like a .eth domain name. These are all kind of Web3 domain names, right? But in order for them to work effectively in kind of a Web2 world, it's basically like a parallel infrastructure running on the outside, right? So you effectively have two pathways trying to merge and work together. So from a complexity standpoint, it can be very difficult, especially if you want to, interoperability is a big challenge in the decentralized space. Like .eth, doesn't necessarily work with like what we're doing. What we're doing doesn't necessarily work with what other decentralized identity foundation members are doing. And so that's a challenge. Like interoperability is a big challenge in the Web3 space. And again, from a Web2, Web3, going back to what I was just saying, is like getting the infrastructures to work together inherently is probably its biggest challenge. And one of the things, like when you work with ArcSphere, one of the things you'll see is like if you use any like ArcBlock ecosystem apps, right? So we have a Web3 domain service. One of the things that you'll notice as you interact is like typically we don't show URLs anywhere. And the reason for that being is, in a Web3 space, they could be long digit strings. It could be a domain name string. It could be something else. And so what we're trying to do is to say, well, hey, like these things, they all look the same, they work the same, they function the same. But in the background, right, they're actually using very different technical infrastructures to coexist as you do that. And so, for us, that's been a really interesting experiment for people because they're like, well, hey, how do I, like, where's the URL, right? Where's the URL bar? You're like, well, you don't need it anymore because it's kind of irrelevant, especially as if Web3 becomes more and more prominent, or you even say like decentralized, decentralized domains. It doesn't really matter anymore, right? Because effectively you're now starting to work within this local network of websites, apps, businesses. Yeah. So it's a big question. To be honest with you, Adam, I'd love to talk about more if you got some time. We can carve out a little time and kind of dive deep if that's of interest.
Definitely, I'd be happy to. I'm very
Yeah.
curious. So if it sounds like it's really difficult to set this up. It didn't look like you were charging for the app or anything. So how do you make money off this?
Yeah, where the goal of ArcSphere is not to make money. We make money in other ways, and so ArcSphere, a couple things. One is it will always be free. The AI service within ArcSphere is free. The only catch and the only kind of use case that we look for is for people to log in, and again, that's log in using your decentralized identity, and we're not there to track. And the reason being is because that in doing so, it allows the AI to connect the data together and become smarter and smarter as you do that. And without that login, you just basically have a dumb AI operating on the phone, right? So the reason being is because what we found through our work, through user surveys, contextual responses probably are the most important type of responses from the AI, right? Really being able to like, it seems like it knows you. It seems like it can guess what you're trying to do, and I think that's where the real power and benefits are for a lot of users, right? It's like, oh, hey, like this is actually really useful because it can in fact kind of know what I'm trying to do and help me get there. Because a lot of times when I search, as an example, like if I'm on ChatGPT, I probably go through like 10 responses where I keep changing, slightly tweaking my response because I'm not quite getting the answer that I want. All right. And we're trying to use those contextual responses to help try to solve that.
Very cool.
Okay, terrific. Thanks, Adam.
Awesome.
And, thanks again, Matt. It was
Yeah, thank you.
question session.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
There's as I said earlier, no, that is the only showcase we had, so we can open it up for discussion. Also, if anybody has an agent that they want to showcase on the next showcase, it's the third Monday of the month. So the next showcase is going to be July 21st. So if anybody wants to showcase, just send an email and we'll sign you up. And then I'll open it up if anybody has anything that they'd like to talk about, ask, mention. Going once. Anybody?
Well, do you mind if I stay on a similar topic for a minute?
Sure.
To see if other people, and it could be Matt or others who have thoughts. I mean, I think this topic of like browsing and AI and how AI is changing browsing the internet it's something I've been thinking about for a while now, and I've met different people who are working on different types of solutions. And I'm curious for Matt or anyone, I mean, does anyone found something recently that is helping you with that type of problem, or a product that's going in that direction on desktop or mobile? I mean, what I love right now, for the first time in a while, I'm trying different browsers, right? I almost want to ditch my iPhone, but it seems like that might be too hard still. But but at least trying, different browsers, different ways of doing things. I've been doing the same way for 10 or 20 years, and I love to see this new ArcSphere, and I'm just curious if there's other cool things to check out. I checked out one called Opera that didn't really convince. What was it? No, not Opera. That's the old one. forget what it was called, but yeah, just curious if others have ideas in this direction.
Yeah, Alina, did you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Uh, I just want to say thank you, Matt, for your great showcase. I definitely tried ARC. And just a few words about our previous tutorial on vibe coding. Thank you, Adam. So I've tried Lovable 2 days this weekend. It was absolutely for free for polish my website. So it's cool. So everything in combination, it's again about AI consciousness. It's again about vibe coding. It's again about AI agents. So thank you, DAIAA, and thank you for this showcasing. Each showcase teaches me something.
Okay. Thanks, Lena. Um, Yeah, I'll chime in, and Adam, I haven't found anything that I'm using. I mean, I quite honestly, I really hadn't thought that much about it. But it's, about leveraging AI and how that can change what, browsing. But yeah, that's super exciting because, how we break up these monopolies, is still a question that, I don't think anybody has an answer to, but I just think it's about, people building, alternative products. And I, also think that, the alternative products, while for the people on the call, privacy is, generally, far more important than I think for the average human on the planet. I think for any of these things to really get, massive usage, I think it's about reimagining kind of the whole experience, obviously, because just adding privacy on top, I don't think is going to be an incentive for very many people. And so, right, how can we totally reimagine what browsing is now that, we have an AI, to leverage. And, for context, for me, I always think of the beginning of social media really being when Facebook introduced the news feed. And social media, that moment became something completely different than what it had been before. Now that we have all these new tools, how can we make, social media different again? How can we make browsing different again so that we can really have an impact?
Hey Lou, this is Matt. If you don't mind, I'll add one thing to it. And one of the experiences we're seeing, and it's a great question because I think AI is especially I'm a little older, so this is not the first cycle I've been through. But one of the things I will say is this one has the potential to be by far and away the biggest impact in terms of just like transforming how people interact with the so-called internet. But one of the really interesting things we're seeing is that also from like a demographic standpoint, there's very clear deltas between how people are looking to interact with the web, the internet, based on age groups, for example. And we're seeing this in a great example is I met with doing some talks at University of Washington last week, and as you interact with professors and other people, right, maybe more in my age demographic and interacting with students, right, there's a very clear delta in terms of like the ability to consume AI in different methods, different models. Like voice, for example, right? Voice is probably not something I would ever use, right? But for a lot of the college students I'm talking to, they're like, yeah, that's a no-brainer, right? Like I just want to like get up and go, right? And being able to interact with AI via voice or kind of other methods that don't involve a keyboard, obviously is something that is coming, whether we wanted to or not. But I think that's a really interesting breakdown, like as you do this, and because like Lovable, again, like as I frequently use Lovable, Bolt, Replit, and some other tools as well. As again, the younger you go, the more you see those embraced, right? Where that's just normal now. Where it's just like, yeah, I build a POC in like an hour, and we do this, we do that, right? Whereas again, like our older developers, right? It's like, no, like bad code, something else. But AI, I think has like the ability to challenge many assumptions, right? And I think what we're trying to do, like as a company, I'll just speak of our company, right? Like we're trying to embrace it and experimenting and seeing, is it positive? Is it negative? We don't know because we haven't tried it. And the case I'll give everybody is like we do employee reviews with AI. We do daily tasks or like weekly tasks with AI. So as a developer comes in at the beginning of the week, they have an entire task list already built out. For some people, that's very uncomfortable, but for other people, when you go through your first AI review, it's pretty weird, if you don't mind me saying so. But what I found is now on the third one, right, is in fact, it's very fair. And you're like, it's really performance, right? You're just like, well, hey, did I actually do what I said I was going to do? And AI is like, it contextually can understand like things got changed, something happened. But that for me has been a really interesting kind of learning experience to go through, because that's something, unlike interacting on the internet or unlike interacting with the ChatGPT, that's something it's coming at me from a different direction. So very much kind of makes you uncomfortable, and then you realize actually it has the potential to be really powerful and beneficial in many ways, where um, it's evaluating you on a very fair state versus what may not be. So
Yeah,
thanks.
fingers crossed. Cool. Anybody else have anything mentioned?
I missed a little bit. How do we get our hands? How can we play with it?
In terms of for
Yeah.
ArcSphere, you mean?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
everything that you're building.
yeah, you can just go to either like on the Android the Play Store or iOS Store, and just do a search for ArcSphere, and you'll see right
ArcSphere.
there. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
ArcSphere. And again, we'd love feedback, and that's really all I wanted to get out here, is to talk to the community and get feedback, and learn from all of you in terms of what matters, what doesn't matter, because we, as much user testing as we do, it's you could never hurts to talk to more people about it. Adam, going back to your other question, I'll just speak to this just because I've been thinking about a lot, is if you haven't tried like GenSpark, for example, DAIAA, um, Opera Neon is really interesting. But what you're going to find is that they're all kind of doing the same thing, right? A lot of them, like Perplexity as an example, with tasks and with Comet. It's effectively like I was kind of mentioning earlier. It's like people are trying to build like an OS for your life, right? Like, oh, like go answer my email. Oh, go make phone calls. Go order me food. Go do this. Go do that, right? Which is, it's all kind of like very reactive in terms of things that you're trying to do, and it's I think that's the challenge, right? Is like, if you think about Google, you think about Microsoft, you think about Perplexity, right? Again, like everybody's trying to like, it's the all-in-one, where it's like, oh, like you're going to do everything with us, and I guess they make it sticky as you do that. And so I would love for people to try the GenSparks of the world, the DAIAs of the world, and see, because what you'll find is AI is super interesting, right? But then it does feel a little bit disconnected, even as you interact with it. And that's kind of been my own personal experiences. Like, as I use these things, there's a level of non-personalization that happens, which I haven't been able to overcome, as I've been using all these different browsers as an example.
Well, if it's helpful, I'll share the two things I feel like I'm really looking for, in these types of tools. And again, I think there's a broader category than just what you're building. It's just like how to interact with AI and the internet. But to me, one is get me quickly to the box where I can type or speak, to the point that these younger people are making. But that's, that can be handled by the iPhone or other apps. Okay. And then two is, to me, it's actually, okay, if I'm doing like hardcore AI stuff, I'm not going to my browser, right? I'm not, that's a separate issue. It's in my IDE, or it's in my favorite deep research tool, or like different things in aggregator, whatever. But to me, it's that the internet has started to feel very boring if it's not enhanced and made more fun. Maybe this is kind of what you're saying about non-personalization. Maybe it's a personalization thing, but like, at least if I use like either maybe, let's just talk about Arc Search, not related to ArcBlock, right? It's an interesting one to try. If you type something in, you type something in, and then you choose either their AI thing or your regular search engine, or one of the suggestions, right? And if you choose their AI thing, it's actually like basically a Perplexity search, but with like a nicer look, I would say, like nicer look and feel, that just feels nice. And so you're going to be looking at something nice and organized. And then I think what, it's relatedly, like, you've built a feature that I already tried, where it's okay, I'm looking at a website and now I want to ask a question about it, or compare it to something else, or whatever. To me, it's almost like that. It's just like, how do you make it fun and compelling again? Because if I'm browsing, I want to have some fun too. I want it to be nice, right? Like surfing. I want it to be like surfing again. And then there's the other use case, which is like going deep on something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, the internet's not as fun as it used to be, for sure. Well, one of the things I'll kind of give you a preview, because one of the things to that point, we you know, because AI is great at generating content. One of the things we're trying to do, we're working on, you'll see this in the next release, is like for X, for YouTube, for these different like social media sites, as an example, or Blue Sky. There's a cool post generator that's coming out, and what's fun about it is like there's like the emoji writer. There's, you know, like they have all these like different personalities, right, that you can kind of go and interact with, right? Which it's for me, like the first time I was like, it's a little weird, but then as I started using it, I was like, hey, this is actually super fun, because I can get a little crazy with my, you know, with my responses and do things that are more interesting, and for sure. And I think to your point, like you're kind of speaking to the heart of like what ArcSphere is trying to do is, in fact, we're trying to kind of personalize the internet again, where it's like, hey, it's like I go do the things I want to do. And you're right. And like one of the use cases I use a lot is I do use the AI to consume websites. The other thing you can do is like that I frequently use, because as I'm doing research, I was like, review all 10 tabs that I have open and create a summary of what's the same, what's the difference, and what's something else, right? So with ArcSphere, like you have the ability, it's not just one page, you can look at a bunch of pages like all at the same time as you do that, right? And that could be the same with like your apps, again, different experiences, you know, just to try to be useful. But to your point, I think we're definitely looking more at the fun factor as being a kind of a key component, that human plus AI component, because without that, it's kind of just what's the point, right? And even like my iPhone's kind of boring. Like to your point, like if I could use something else, I would. But my parents are on iPhones, right? So we use FaceTime, and you know that's kind of the way it is. But it's like, yeah, it's kind of just like, meh. So, well, great stuff.
I hope this is what causes Apple to finally have to open up their walled garden. Uh, because that's what I'm feeling. A couple good friends of mine work there, and I always talk to them about this stuff. Uh, but we have not talked about it. They won't talk about AI, right? It's a lot of internal stuff obviously going on. But it's like, here's the thing, I don't even think it's possible for Apple, even give them time, money, and infrastructure. There's no way for them to solve the use cases that I'm currently solving with AI. This now most of my computing time, I'm doing stuff that I cannot do with Siri or like built-in Apple AI stuff for the most part. And so I feel like their options are either just truly open up the whole ecosystem, which they'll obviously fight tooth and nail, or they've got to catch up in a way that's just impossible. So I don't know, it feels like that's going to come to a head at some point. But yeah, for now, it's just like, okay, so my iPhone is the one thing in my life that's like not like getting smarter right now and integrated with the rest of my computing, but still fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of speculation. Apple's kind of the Microsoft of the '90s, right? Where it's starting to kind of fall behind. Yeah, all great stuff. And I'd love to, I mean, if anybody else has been out experimenting with browsers or decentralization anyway, you know, decentralization again is coming back. And I think to your point, like as you personalize, decentralization really has the ability to do that in a way that's never been done before, because in fact with decentralization, I'm more willing to open up and experiment, because again, I have the ability to control it, right? With Google sign on or these other things, like, you know, how much information do you actually want to give it? Because every time you sign on, right, you're giving 20 data points, right? Or Google Chrome tracks, you know, a couple hundred different data points, you know, as you use and consume Google Chrome, right? So it's hard to be free and open up. So love it. Well, thank
Okay.
you all again for the great
Perfect, Matt.
questions.
Thank you. Thanks for all the
Thank you.
questions. And have a great Monday, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.